Engineers. It's a story so rich in intrigue that if it were fiction, it would likely be a bestseller, because all of the dead, almost 24 to date, worked in Western Europe's defense industry.
Hey you and welcome. My name is Mike, and in this video we got one of them conspiracies, maybe, on our hands. This one isn't really tinfoil hat worthy because, well, you'll see folks, you'll see. Like, this one's pretty real, I think. So, between 1982 and 1990, 25 scientists and engineers who worked on classified projects died under mysterious and sometimes unexplainable circumstances. They all worked for British-based GEC Marconi, a defense contractor, and the projects they worked on included the United States Strategic Defense Initiative, better known by its awesome name of Star Wars, and other top-secret military programs. Star Wars was essentially like a space program that would shoot down any nukes the Russians sent. Many of these deaths of scientists and engineers were so unexplainable, the coroners were unable to determine a cause of death. Others were judged to be accidents or suicides, despite clear evidence to the contrary. That's 25 scientists. That's a lot, more than 24. And some lists include more than 25 on the amount of people who died during the Marconi murders. Buddies, let's take a look. The story begins on an evening in March 1982 with the death of senior computer scientist Dr. Keith Bowden, who was then a contractor for GEC Marconi. One night, after attending a social function in London, Keith Bowden drove his car off the road, down an embankment and into an abandoned rail yard. He died instantly. The police said Keith Bowden was drunk and driving too fast, but his wife and solicitor disagreed. Friends who were with him that night said he was completely sober. Keith Bowden's solicitor hired an accident investigator to examine the wreck. And, dun dun dun, someone switched out Bowden's normally pristine and perfect tires on his car with ones that were totally worn down and treadless.
These are the tires. Someone had replaced them with old and dangerous tires.
These are not the tires that would have been on the Rover. They're a different sort of tire, and you can see how badly worn they are. They're smooth, and here they're worn right down to the fabric.
That's worn completely through the tread.
Completely through.
And this wear could not have happened from the accident, from the burning of the tire?
No.
You believe this was not an accident?
No, that wasn't an accident. Got to be an accident with those things on his car, didn't it?
Perfect tires if you want to lose control and drive off a road. Lieutenant Colonel Anthony Godley, head of the Work Study Unit at the Royal College of Military Science, he disappeared in April 1982. No one knows what happened to him. He just vanished, presumed dead. 3 years later, next up was radar designer Roger Hill, who shot himself with a shotgun in his home in 1985. That same year, Jonathan Wash, a communications expert for Marconi, died after jumping from a hotel window in Africa. He said to friends before leaving Africa that he was fearing for his life, and the coroner returned an open verdict. Literally, when the coroner says he died under mysterious circumstances, but in 1986, Vigil Dajiba, butchered another name there, jumped off a bridge in Bristol. There was no reason for him to be in Bristol. He lived 100 miles away. He had been working at Marconi on computer control systems for Stingray torpedoes. He was found with his pants around his ankles and a needle-sized puncture wound on his butt cheek. The Bristol coroner said it was a mystery then and remains a mystery now. Another open verdict was returned. 2 months later, Arshad Sharif, another computer scientist who worked on satellite guidance systems at Marconi, died in the gruesomest circumstances. Top 5 at least. Also in Bristol, he tied one end of a rope to his neck, the other end of that rope to a tree, got in his car, and well, you can imagine what he did next. When the grisly scene was found, something strange was noticed. A metal rod lying on the floor of the car next to the accelerator. Almost like one you'd use to wedge down a pedal. Into 1987 and 1988, the number of deaths increased, so much so that the media and politicians started to investigate what the hell was going on. In 1987, Richard Pugh, another computer expert in the defense industry and consultant to the Ministry of Defense, was found in his flat. His feet bound, a plastic bag on his head, and a thick rope tied around his body and 4 times around his neck. The coroner's verdict was an accident due to sexual misadventure. A few days later, Dr. John Britton died in his garage of carbon monoxide poisoning. The next month, David Skeels also died of carbon monoxide poisoning. His body was found jammed underneath the car with his mouth next to the exhaust pipe. John Whitman supposedly drowned himself in his bathtub. His body was found surrounded by pills and alcohol bottles. Yet there were no traces of drugs or alcohol in his system. Next month, a scientist, David Sands, made a U-turn on the road and then drove into an abandoned cafe and died. The car was filled with cans of petrol and it exploded. Somebody wanted him to go out with a bang, maybe to destroy any evidence, or it was just a very explosive suicide attempt. The previous year, Marconi purchased defense electronics firm Plessey, and in 1987 the mysterious deaths spread to that company too. Another technician jumped off a cliff. More died from carbon monoxide. Sean E. Warren was a PA at a company called Microscope that was about to be bought by Marconi. She was found drowned in 18 inches of water, gagged, with a noose around her neck. Her feet were tied and her hands were bound behind her back. She was wearing stiletto shoes and dressed in formal attire. The coroner listed her death as an open verdict, but speculated that she had gagged herself, tied herself up, and hobbled to a lake on stilettos to drown herself. Right. Her footprints were found on the bed of the lake, yet no other footprints were found. Mysterious. Alistair Beckham, a senior figure, was a computer engineer who was working on top-secret pilot programs for America's Strategic Defense Initiative. On a Sunday afternoon, he apparently decided to attach wires to his chest, pushed them into a power socket, and, with a handkerchief jammed in his mouth, hit the power button. Just hours after his death, men from the Ministry of Defense arrived at the scene and took away several documents and files from Beckham's home. The director of Marconi, a man named John Ferry, stripped wires and attached them to his tooth fillings and electrocuted himself. So what the hell? That's 25 apparent suicides, all in the space of a few years, all of them working on top secret stuff. Now, they didn't all know each other, this wasn't like a little club, but they all worked on similar programs. So, what you thinking? This was the 80s, them KGB boys, CIA. The official British government position was that it was all just coincidences, brought on by high levels of stress in the industry. Ever been so stressed you attached stripped wires to your tooth fillings? It's creative, I'll give it that. One expert in mental illness and suicide said, "I don't think so." 4 of the men who died had complained to friends and family that they had been tasked strange, impossible, and unscientific tasks by their employers. All these particular 4 men committed suicide in incredibly violent and bizarre ways. Ways in which suicide experts say only those who were highly disturbed would act on. People who wouldn't be able to hold down jobs. But these men were all employed until the day of their deaths, and none had shown any sign of mental illness or any other disturbances. All of the men had also recently found new jobs and were preparing to leave within days of their deaths. Also, they had all recently arranged appointments with their representative politicians.
Intelligence analysts have to study the probabilities. I would say the probability is that in most of the cases that have been reviewed, there is a hostile purpose by an enemy intelligence service which has either controlled or has suggested to maybe irresponsible people that it would be wise for them to attack a specific enemy, and that those enemies are the high-tech defense research community.
Were these men being silenced for something? Some of the men were said to have died by sexual misadventure. However, one intelligence expert said that death by sexual misadventure is a common way of covering up murders in the world of espionage. And we've seen that before. It's a useful way to do it. It provides a disguise for the actual means and method of death. It also trashes the reputation of the victim and blunts the energy of any subsequent investigation. And the Marconi deaths, they weren't the only ones related to top secret military programs. In West Germany in 1986, there were several incidents involving individuals working on Star Wars. Also in Italy, France, other countries. It was just in Britain that it reached this scale. The only argument against it being espionage is stress. But I'm sad to say that's all we have to go on. There's nothing actually linking anyone or any particular group to these murders, well, deaths. If there was any evidence, it was long covered up. These people all worked on top secret military programs. Someone wanted them to not be working on them or to disrupt them. Maybe others thought that these people may have been leaky ships, could have said something out of turn, something classified, and wanted to silence them. Now, some likely were accidents, some likely were suicides, but I certainly don't think all of them were. There was definitely something shady going on during the time of the Marconi murders. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you'd like to see some more of my videos, please subscribe and let me know your thoughts on this case down below. Thanks again, and I will see you real soon as always in the next video. Take care of yourselves. Mike out.